So I traveled from Singapore to Europe for free using credit card miles. And here is how I do it. So this is not really like a financial YouTube channel, but I want to share with you exactly how did I manage to go from Singapore to Europe using credit card miles. Firstly, I want to share my experience going to Europe. I actually went to 3 countries that I've always wanted to go: UK, France, and Italy. So I went to the capitals of the 3 cities. I went to from Singapore to London, and then from London I went to Paris, and from Paris I went to Rome. I did create like a whole separate video for Rome, but this video I want to talk about how exactly did I do it, especially when traveling from Singapore to Europe is actually quite expensive, and flight tickets. I think if you want to get like a round trip, it can cost maybe about $2,000, and I even flew it on Singapore Airlines. And Singapore Airlines is one of the best or the best airline in the world. I've always stressed how much I love Singapore Airlines. I even applied for the cadet pilot program, but enough about that. So I went to London. I visited the Big Ben. I visited many very famous places in London. It was also a first time for me to experience cold weather. So because I always live in Singapore and I travel around Southeast Asia, so I'm used to the really hot weather. But being in Europe showed me the experience of cold weather, and it was such a breeze. The moment I stepped out of the airport, I was like greeted by a gust of cold air. It was crazy. So in London, I visited many places. I went to Buckingham Palace, went to Big Ben, like I said, took the metro, or they call it the tube there, instead of the MRT. And I also went to Paris. I saw the Eiffel Tower. I went to Palais Garnier. I went to the Louvre. Many cool places in Paris. Paris, I've always loved Paris. I can speak French, but the experience there wasn't that optimal, but it was such a memorable experience being in Paris. And after that, I went to Rome, went to the Colosseum. I visited many museums. It's not really a museum, it's more like a massive open air museum in Rome. And how did I go to Europe using credit card miles as a Singaporean? But how do I do it is 2 types of credit cards that gives 2 kinds of rewards. One is the miles, and the other is cashback. So cashback is quite straightforward. Basically, you spend a bit of money, and then they'll give you back money in return. So the one I want to talk about is my favorite, which is Miles credit card. And Miles credit card is not as straightforward as cashback credit cards. So how exactly does Miles credit card work? Instead of giving you cashback, when you spend a certain amount of money, the credit card will give you miles. These miles can be exchanged via participating airline programs. And because I'm based in Singapore, I always prefer Singapore Airlines. And Singapore Airlines, there's Singapore Airlines, and there's also Scoot as well. So you can use your miles for both of them. For example, I spend $1 on an ice cream, and there's a McDonald's actually right behind me, hilariously. They will give you 4 miles per dollar if you choose the correct card. There are 2 kinds of miles credit cards. There are specialized credit cards. So for example, I spend $10 on a normal shopping purchase, and then they will give me 4 miles per dollar. So that becomes 40 miles. And there are general spend cards. For example, they will give you 1.2 miles or 1 mile. They're quite low, but you can spend almost anything and they give you like 1 mile. I was seeing which credit cards give you the 4 miles per dollar. That's the baseline. There are other credit cards that give you like 6 or 10 miles per dollar, which is just insane, but they're very difficult to get and to hit those kind of criteria. So usually the base minimum miles that I would like to always get is always 4 miles per dollar. And I got 7 credit cards actually, but to be honest, I only use 5 or 4 credit cards. And you may be thinking like, okay, these credit cards, wouldn't you go into debt? And that is the first thing about credit cards, is that credit cards, you should think about it not as infinite money, more or less a way to pay. So I'm actually quite strict with my expenses. I do have a budget. I keep track of literally everything I spend. Everything I spend, I will keep track of it. So I know which purchases I spend on which specific credit cards. And because I do set a budget every single month, basically my spending becomes incredibly optimized. So for example, I did have a hotel booking. It cost about $400. So if I put it on a 4 miles per dollar card, it becomes 1,600 miles. And that's a lot. That's a lot of miles. And over time, These miles will accumulate. If you want to go to Europe, which I did, you need at least 84,000 miles. And it took me about 2+ years to accumulate those kind of miles. And that was on economy class on Singapore Airlines. If you want to go like business class, it's a bit more expensive if you try to do it via Singapore Airlines. But if you go to like closer places like, let's just say, Taiwan or Beijing or Vietnam, the business class redemptions is much lesser. So that is how I actually travel on for free, basically. Like I said, the only thing for credit cards that I do spend, honestly, airport fees. So when you redeem the miles on basically Singapore Airlines or Scoot, the ticket is actually free when you redeem the miles, but you just need to pay for the airport fees. So when I travel, especially to some exotic places like Europe, I end up just paying mostly just for the hotel attractions and food. I don't have to pay for the air tickets, and usually air tickets are usually the most expensive. But I will be going on the trip, and I'm very excited to post it, many videos of it soon. And of course, I use the power of mouse to do this trip. And yeah, remember to hit like and subscribe, and do follow me on my socials as well. And bye bye.